What if you could truly bend the rules of your character, taking abilities from different paths to unlock a level of power that makes even the most experienced dungeon master stop and take notice?
That's the intriguing world of multiclassing in D&D 5th edition, isn't it? It's not just, picking skills off a list. It's more like character alchemy.
Alchemy, yeah, I like that. Mixing different classes to create something, well, far greater than the sum of its parts.
Definitely.
Exactly. And that's where we're diving today. We're cracking open an article from LitRPG Reads. Actually, this landed on our desk thanks to you. You had that recent RPG session that really got you thinking about pushing character builds, right?
Yeah, it did. And this source seemed perfect. It goes deep into the, let's call it, art and science of multi-class synergy, specifically in 5e.
Right. It looks at how certain combinations can create these incredibly potent characters, unlocking features and power levels you just wouldn't find sticking to a single class path. So our mission today, our deep dive, is basically to pull out the most important nuggets from this source. We're zeroing in on 5 specific multi-class combinations the article highlights. The ones it calls particularly powerful, strategic, really pushing the boundaries.
And at its heart, multiclassing lets you sort of defy typical expectations. You might see a fighter who suddenly starts throwing around powerful magic.
Or a character you thought was just a spellcaster suddenly steps onto the front line in heavy armor, just soaking up damage. It's unexpected.
Totally. And the article points out the potential mechanical advantages are huge. We're talking like devastating burst damage, surprising spellcasting options, really tricky ways to play with the action economy, how much you can do in your turn.
Right, squeezing more out of a round.
An entirely unique sets of abilities, these custom kits.
But okay, there have to be downsides, right? It can't all be upside.
Oh, absolutely. The source is clear on that. It reminds us that multiclassing often means delaying or sometimes even completely losing those really powerful high-level abilities, the capstones unique to a single class.
Right, you miss out on the level 20 stuff.
Yeah, and it can require juggling different ability scores, which can get awkward. You might need high strength and intelligence, for example.
Makes sense. Spread too thin.
And there's always that risk of becoming just okay at several things, a jack of all trades, instead of truly mastering one.
A master of none, yeah. And this is key, something the article really stresses. This is not about trying to break the game or, be disruptive at the table.
No, definitely not.
It's framed much more as creative expression through understanding the system, system mastery, adding exciting new dimensions to the tactical drama.
And always keeping table balance and group enjoyment as the North Star.
Yeah, it's about enhancing the game for everyone involved, not just showing off how broken your character is.
Exactly. It's about using the rules creatively to bring a unique and highly effective hero concept to life.
Okay, let's get into it then. Let's unpack some of these specific examples the article dives into. It gives them some pretty memorable nicknames.
Yeah, they're good.
We've got the Nova Knight, the Charmer, the Executioner, the Jugger Beast, and the Battle Bishop. Ready to see how these actually work?
Absolutely. Let's start strong. How about that Nova Knight?
The Nova Knight, okay, yeah, that sounds like someone who hits really, really hard. This is the Sorcerer and Paladin mix. What's the core idea here?
So the absolute heart of this build, it's all about combining the Paladin's Divine Smite.
Right, the add damage after you hit thing.
Yeah, exactly. With the Sorcerer's significantly better spell slot progression. Divine Smite lets you, after you hit someone in melee, choose to spend a spell slot for this burst of radiant damage.
Okay, yeah. So you're not guessing beforehand if you'll hit, like most casters. You spend the resource after you know it connects.
Precisely. And sorcerers. They just get way more spell slots than paladins as they level up. So suddenly, you have this huge pool of fuel to just dump into those smites.
For incredible burst damage. Hence the Nova.
Exactly, like a star exploding.
Plus, I seem to remember both classes use charisma as a primary stat. That's got to make it easier, right? You only need to pump one main score.
That's the other key synergy. High charisma fuels your sorcerer spells and your paladin abilities, like the saving throw DCs. It's super efficient.
Okay.
And the tactics get really spicy when you bring in the sorcerer's meta magic.
Meta magic, right? Where sorcerers can twist their spells. How does that help here? What's the trick?
Well, one key meta magic is Quickened Spell. It lets you spend sorcery points to cast a spell that normally takes your main action as a bonus action instead.
Oh, okay. So you can cast an attack.
Get this, Imagine casting a spell like Hold Person as a quick bonus action. You paralyze an enemy,
Okay.
and then you still have your full action to run up and smack them with your sword or hammer.
And hitting a paralyzed creature guarantees a critical hit.
Guarantees it, which means you roll all those damage dice twice, your weapon dice, any other bonus dice, and the Divine Smite dice you choose to add after you see it's a crit.
Whoa, okay. That's the Nova moment. Unleashing absolutely massive damage in one turn.
That's the big one. That explains the nickname perfectly.
The article must go into how you actually, put this character together, level progression and stuff.
It does, yeah. It suggests starting Paladin, usually for the heavy armor proficiency and the good saving throws, Wisdom and Charisma.
Okay.
Taking just 2 levels gets you Divine Smite and a fighting style, like Defense or Dueling. Some builds go further, maybe up to Paladin 6.
Why level 6?
That's for the Aura Protection. It adds your Charisma bonus to all saving throws for you and any allies nearby. It's incredibly powerful party defense.
Wow, yeah, that's huge. So after Paladin 2 or 6, you just go Sorcerer the rest of the way.
Pretty much. You want those higher level Sorcerer spell slots to fuel more and bigger smites. So yeah, you see splits like Paladin 6, Sorcerer 14, or maybe even just Paladin 2, Sorcerer 18 if you really want those high-level spells over the aura.
Makes sense. What about subclasses? Any recommendations there?
For Paladin, Oath of Vengeance is popular for mobility and getting advantage, or Oath of Conquest for control. On the Sorcerer side, Divine Soul gets you access to cleric spells like Bless or Healing, which is nice. Shadow Sorcerer adds some durability.
And feats. Things like Warcaster.
Definitely. Warcaster is great for keeping concentration on spells like Hold Person or maybe Haste when you're right there in melee taking hits. Resilient for Constitution saving throws is also a top pick.
So the playstyle is this kind of careful balancing act. You're the armored frontliner, maybe the party face because of high charisma, you're providing that defensive aura, but you're always sort of waiting.
Yeah, you're waiting for that perfect moment, managing your spell slots, especially the high-level ones, to just unleash everything at once for a huge, dramatic burst.
All about planning and timing that big hit.
Absolutely. You need to know when to hold back and when to go all out. But you're still a solid character the rest of the time,
Yeah.
Providing support, taking hits.
Okay, got it. Moving from that intense burst damage to something the article called the Charmer, this is a Hexblade Warlock and Sorcerer blend. It sounds like a pure versatility.
It really is. This is the Arcane Blade concept. It's a character fueled almost entirely by charisma that can excel in, everything. Melee, ranged combat, spellcasting, and social situations. A true jack-of-all-trades, master of, maybe master of charisma.
The key synergy has to be that Hexblade Warlock feature, right? The one that lets you use charisma for attack and damage rolls with weapons instead of strength or dexterity.
Bingo. That single feature, Hex Warrior, from the Hexblade subclass at level 1, is an absolute game changer. It means you only need one high stat, Charisma, to be good at casting spells and hitting things with a weapon.
That's powerful.
And then you add the Warlock's signature cantrip, Eldritch Blast, and you have to take the Agonizing Blast invocation, which adds your Charisma bonus to its damage too.
So now you've got great ranged damage, also scaling off charisma, melee, ranged, spells. All CHA.
All CHA. And just like the Nova Knight, the Sorcerer side brings that amazing metamagic. Quicken Spell is great again, letting you cast a spell and attack in the same turn.
Or Twin Spell.
Twin Spell is fantastic here. Target 2 creatures with a powerful single target debuff, like say Banishment or Polymorph. Or even just twinning a damage cantrip early on.
And Warlock spell slots are weird, right? They refresh on a short rest.
Yeah, that's another huge piece of the puzzle. You get fewer Warlock slots, but they come back whenever you take a short break, not just after a full night's sleep.
How does that help the Sorcerer side?
Well, you can convert those Warlock slots into sorcery points using the flexible casting feature, which then fuel your metamagic. Or you can even use them to cast your Sorcerer spells. It gives you a lot more casting endurance throughout the day, provided you get short rests.
Oh, interesting. So you're constantly recharging your metamagic fuel.
Kinda, yeah. Plus, the Hexblade gets Hexblade's Curse for extra damage and a better crit chance against one target per short rest. And you can even grab the Eldritch Smite invocation later if you want more smiting ability, but fueled by those short rest Warlock slots.
Okay, so build path. The article suggests starting Sorcerer.
Usually, yeah. Primarily for the Constitution saving throw proficiency. Since you're often concentrating on spells while potentially being in melee, that con and save is vital.
Makes sense. Then dip into Warlock.
Just a couple of levels. Warlock 2 gets you Hex Warrior for the CHA to attack, And 2 crucial Eldritch invocations, like Agonizing Blast and maybe Devil's Sight.
Devil's Sight for the darkness combo.
Exactly. Cast darkness on yourself, see through it perfectly with Devil's Sight, and attack enemies with advantage because they can't see you. Warlock 3 is optional, mainly if you want Pact of the Blade to summon a specific magic weapon.
So the split is usually pretty shallow on the Warlock side, like Warlock 2 or 3, then Sorcerer the rest of the way.
That's the common approach, yeah.
Yeah.
Sorcerer 17 or 18 gives you access to those high-level spells and more sorcery points. Feats like Resilient, Scion, if you didn't start Sorc or Warcaster, are again super important for maintaining concentration.
Okay, so the playstyle is just be good at everything.
Pretty much. You're the ultimate adaptable character. You're the party face, great in conversations. In combat, you can fill almost any role needed. Need ranged damage, Eldritch Blast, need melee, step up with your CHA weapon, need control, twin a debuff, need utility. You've got sorcerer spells.
Sounds like you have an answer for most situations.
You do. You just have to be smart about managing those warlock slots and sorcery points, knowing when a short rest is feasible. You're always thinking of the best tool for the job at that exact moment.
That variety sounds genuinely fun to play. Okay, let's switch gears. From all-around versatility to, like, focused destruction. Number 3, Fighter and Rogue combo. Nicknamed the Executioner or the Crit Storm Duelist.
Yeah, this one's all about precision, speed, and maximizing damage in very concentrated bursts, often right at the start of combat. It expertly blends the fighter's raw martial prowess with the rogue's cunning and that signature sneak attack damage.
The core synergy here feels obvious. Fighter's action surge plus rogue's sneak attack.
Absolutely. Action Surge is that fantastic fighter ability, usually usable once per short rest, that just gives you a whole additional action on your turn. It's like getting a second turn packed into one round.
Insane action economy.
Totally. And Sneak Attack is the rogue feature that adds a big pile of extra damage dice scaling with your rogue level whenever you hit a creature with advantage on the attack roll, or if one of your allies is right next to the target and you're using a finesse or ranged weapon.
So you use Action Surge to get potentially double the number of attacks.
Right, like if you have extra attack from fighter.
And you're trying to set up conditions like having advantage or an ally nearby to apply that big sneak attack damage bonus on at least one, maybe more, of those attacks.
Exactly. You're lining everything up for maximum impact. And don't forget the rogue's cunning action.
Bonus action dash, disengage, or hide.
Yep. Incredible mobility. Lets you use your bonus action every turn to either get into the perfect position to gain advantage for sneak attack or to hit and then safely dart away before they can retaliate.
The article really emphasizes getting high initiative for this build, right? Going first seems critical.
Hugely important.
Yeah.
You want to act before your enemies, ideally catching them flat-footed or setting up your allies. Feats like Alert, which gives a flat +5 bonus to initiative, are almost tailor-made for this concept.
And subclasses play a big role too.
Definitely. On the fighter side, Champion is simple but effective, doubling your critical hit chance, which makes sneak attack crits even nastier. Samurai is another great option, letting you give yourself advantage on all attacks for a turn, plus temporary hit points, which guarantees sneak attack and helps with crits.
And for the rogue,
Assassin is the classic combo, especially with fighter. If you act before anyone who hasn't taken a turn yet, you get advantage. And any hit against a surprise creature is an automatic critical hit.
So, okay, picture this. Surprise round, Assassin goes first, automatic crit with sneak attack, then action surge, attack again, maybe another crit if they're still surprised. That's devastating.
That's the dream scenario for that specific Assassin Fighter blend, yeah. Massive first-round Alpha Strike potential. Swashbuckler Rogue is also good, adding charisma to initiative and making it easier to sneak attack solo targets.
What about the level split between fighter and rogue?
It varies depending on what you prioritize. Something like Fighter 11 Rogue 9 gets you the fighter's third attack at level 11, which is huge for multiple chances to land sneak attack. Or you could go Rogue 14 Fighter 6, getting more sneak attack dice and useful rogue defensive features like evasion, while still getting action surge and extra attack from fighter. Dexterity is almost always your main stat here.
And feats, besides alert.
If you happen to be an elf or half-elf, elven accuracy is incredible. When you have advantage, you get to roll 3 d20s instead of 2, which drastically increases your chance of critting. Mobile is also really good for that hit-and-run style, letting you move away from enemies you attack without provoking opportunity attacks.
So the playstyle is all about speed and decisive action. You're trying to control the fight by going first, hitting incredibly hard right away.
Exactly. Using cunning action constantly to dart in, maybe hide for advantage, unleash a burst of attacks with action surge and sneak attack, and then maybe use cunning action again to disengage and reposition or hide again.
It sounds like a tactical puzzle every turn.
It really is. Focusing on maximizing your damage output while minimizing the risk to yourself. Hit hard, hit fast, get out of dodge.
All right, next up is the Jugger Beast. Barbarian and Druid. This one just sounds like a tank. A big, furry, angry tank.
It absolutely is. This build isn't really about flashy damage numbers. It's all about becoming incredibly, absurdly difficult to take down. Like unkillable levels of tough.
How does it manage that?
It achieves this by stacking the damage resistance you get from Barbarian Rage, especially the Bear Totem feature, with the extra pools of temporary hit points you gain from using Wild Shape as a Druid, particularly a Moon Druid.
Okay, walk me through that. You rage.
Right. Barbarian Rage, while active, gives you resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage, the most common types. If you choose the Path of the Totem Warrior and pick Bear at level 3, that resistance expands to all damage types except Psychic. So you're taking half damage from almost everything.
Half damage from nearly everything. Okay, then you Wild Shape.
Exactly. While raging, you use your Wild Shape to transform into a beast form, say a brown bear. That bear form has its own hit point pool, separate from yours.
Okay.
When enemies finally manage to chew through the bear's HT, you just revert back to your normal form with whatever hit points you had when you shifted. You basically get a free buffer of hit points.
And if you're a Moon Druid?
If you're a Circle of the Moon Druid, you can use your Wild Shape as a bonus action, and you can transform into tougher, higher CR beasts earlier on. This is key.
Why the bonus action part?
Because it means when your current beast form's HP drops to 0, you pop back into your regular form, and then on your same turn, you can use your bonus action to immediately Wild Shape into a new beast form with a completely fresh pool of hit points.
Oh my god, that sounds incredibly frustrating for a DM to deal with. You just keep throwing up these new walls of temporary hit points that are also taking half damage because you're still raging.
It is. You're essentially multiplying your effective hit points dramatically.
Yeah.
The article stresses a crucial point, though. You have to initiate Rage before you Wild Shape.
Why?
Because you can't start a Rage while you're in beast form. So, action to Rage, bonus action to Wild Shape, if Moon Druid. Then you're good to go.
Can you cast spells? Doesn't Rage stop spell casting?
It does prevent casting or concentrating on spells while raging. So any Druid spells you want active, like maybe Absorb Elements for even more resistance, or Barkskin for AC, though Beast AC is often better, you have to cast before you Rage in Wild Shape.
Gotcha. Pre-buff, then transform.
Exactly. And outside of combat, you still have all that great Druid utility healing spells like Healing Word, Ritual Casting, Scouting Potential with different animal forms.
So build Path. Start Druid.
The article suggests starting Druid, yeah. Go to level 2 or 3, making sure to pick Circle of the Moon for combat Wild Shape. Then switch over to Barbarian.
How far into Barbarian?
You definitely want to get to Barbarian 3 for the subclass. Specifically Path of the Totem Warrior choosing Bear. After that, more Barbarian levels give you more rages, better rage damage, but more Druid levels give you access to stronger Wild Shape forms eventually, like Elementals at Druid 10. It's a balance.
Stats must be focused on Constitution, right? For HP and maybe Barbarian stuff.
Yeah.
And Wisdom for Druid prerequisites.
Pretty much. Con is king for overall durability. Wisdom needs to be at least 13 to multi-class Druid. Strength helps with attacks if you're not in beast form, but often your beast form stats take over. Feats like Resilient, C on N, tough for more HP, or even mobile to help you stick to enemies can be good.
The playstyle is definitely the unkillable tank then.
Absolutely. You are the party's shield. You draw aggro, soak up incredible amounts of punishment, and just refuse to go down. Your personal damage output might be modest compared to some of these other builds, but your resilience is off the charts.
You enable the rest of the party to do their thing safely.
Exactly. You control the battlefield simply by being the hardest target to eliminate.
That's a really crucial role. Okay, final combo the article highlights. Wizard and Cleric. The Spell Tyrant or the Battle Bishop. Sounds like magical overload.
It kind of is. This build is all about achieving unparalleled spell utility, support, and control by getting access to the combined might of both the Arcane Wizard and Divine Cleric spell lists.
Access to two of the biggest and best spell lists in the game. That's the obvious core synergy, isn't it?
It absolutely is the main draw. You get the vast library of wizard spells control, utility, damage, rituals, along with features like preparing spells from your spellbook each day, and arcane recovery to get some slots back on a short rest.
Okay.
Combined with the crucial buffs, healing, potent domain features, and powerful defensive or offensive spells from the cleric list.
The article specifically mentioned the Divination Wizard's Portent feature. That always feels like cheating fate a little bit.
Being able to roll 2 d20s after a long rest and just decide later in the day, you know what, that enemy fails its saving throw, or my ally hits with that crucial attack. It's incredibly powerful for controlling key moments.
Yeah, that's huge. What about other wizard schools? Abjuration.
Abjuration works really well too. Its Arcane Ward feature gives you this regenerating shield of temporary hit points, fueled by casting Abjuration spells like Shield or Absorb Elements.
Yeah.
It makes you surprisingly durable for a primary caster.
And then you layer on the cleric goodness, like what?
Classic powerful cleric spells. Things like Bless to buff your party's attack rolls and saves, Spirit Guardians for amazing area control and damage that radiates around you, and of course the ever-reliable Healing Word as a bonus action heal to pick up downed allies from range.
Okay, so build path. The article suggests starting cleric. Why?
Primarily for proficiencies. Starting cleric gets you armor proficiency, potentially medium armor and shields, depending on the domain and wisdom saving throw proficiency, which is generally better than the intelligence saves wizards get.
How many cleric levels? Just a dip?
Usually just a small dip, yeah.
Yeah.
1 or 2 levels is typical. Level 1 gets you your divine domain features, some of which are incredibly strong right away. Domains like Twilight or Peace offer insanely potent party buffs and protection just from that first level.
Twilight Sanctuary or Balm of Peace, yeah.
Exactly. Level 2 gets you Channel Divinity, which can offer another powerful ability depending on the domain. After that, it's almost entirely wizard levels.
So splits like Cleric 1 Wizard 19 or Cleric 2 Wizard 18?
Precisely. You want to maximize your wizard spellcasting progression for those high-level spells and slots.
Oh wait, doesn't this make your stats really complicated? You need high intelligence for wizard spells and high wisdom for cleric spells, right?
That's the common misconception, but you actually prioritize intelligence heavily, since most of your levels and your most impactful spells will be wizard spells. You only need enough wisdom, usually just a 13, to meet the multiclassing requirement.
So your cleric spells don't suffer from lower wisdom.
Many of the best low-level cleric spells you take for this build, like Bless, Healing Word, Shield of Faith, Spirit Guardians even, don't rely heavily or at all on your wisdom modifier for their primary effect. Their power comes from the spell itself, not your casting stat. Constitution is also important, of course, for hit points and concentration.
Gotcha. So INT, Con YS, just enough. And feats. Warcaster again.
Essential. Resilient, C on N, is also top tier to protect concentration on those big wizard control spells. And anything that boosts initiative, like the alert feat or maybe relying on something like the Twilight Cleric's initiative advantage from its domain feature, is great because you want to get your crucial buffs and control spells up early in a fight.
So the playstyle of this battle bishop is the ultimate support and controller.
Exactly. You are the strategist's dream. You're the party's backbone. You provide control, buffs, debuffs, healing, utility, defensive reactions like shield and absorb elements. You might not be the one dealing the flashiest damage personally, but you make everyone around you significantly better and safer. And you probably have the right spell prepared for almost any conceivable situation.
Your flexibility is tied to your spellbook size and how well you prepare your spells each day.
That's the key. It requires careful resource management, knowing when to use your few cleric features, when to burn a high-level wizard slot, and excellent concentration management. But a well-played spell tyrant is incredibly difficult for enemies to deal with because they just have so many ways to shut down threats and boost their allies.
The article included a helpful little table, right? Summarizing these builds.
Yeah, it recapped their main roles like Striker for the Nova Knight and Executioner, Tank for the Jugger Beast, Support Control for the Battle Bishop, and kind of everything for the Charmer. It also listed primary stats and gave a rough complexity rating.
Right, noting that some, like the Nova Knight and Battle Bishop, require maybe a bit more careful resource tracking and understanding of complex rule interactions.
While others like the Charmer and Jugger Beast were maybe rated a bit more straightforward to manage turn to turn.
Which leads right into the article's concluding thoughts, right? About why people build characters like this. It wasn't about being cheesy, it was framed differently.
Yeah, it framed power gaming, or maybe optimization is a better word, as being about becoming the most effective version of the hero you envision. It's about rewarding strategic thinking and creative application of the game's rules.
And that optimized characters, when they're played well and collaboratively, don't necessarily steal the spotlight. They often create opportunities for the entire party to shine.
Exactly. that can help the group overcome those really tough challenges, those moments where things look grim.
But crucially, the source really emphasized communication, talking with your DM, talking with your fellow players about your build and your goals, making sure everyone's on the same page and having fun.
That's paramount. D&D is cooperative. And these builds, they absolutely demand a solid understanding of the game's rhythm, knowing when to unleash your Nova, when to focus on tanking, when to deploy that crucial control spell.
Timing is everything.
And they really shine in those tougher campaigns, those high-stakes situations where having that strategic edge, that optimized capability, really makes the difference between, a TPK and an epic victory.
So we've taken a pretty deep dive here into 5 really distinct ways to combine classes for powerful strategic effects in D&D 5e, pulling these insights straight from that LitRPG Reads article. It's clear these kinds of combinations offer some really exciting layers of gameplay.
They really reward understanding the system.
Yeah, and as the article wisely reminds us, and it's definitely a point worth repeating, D&D is fundamentally a cooperative story, right?
Absolutely.
The most powerful build, ultimately, is the one that genuinely adds to the fun, the wonder, the camaraderie around the table, not just the one with the biggest numbers.
Well said. It's about making the shared story better.
A big thank you again to LitRPG Reads and Paul Belleau, yes, a fine fellow indeed, for providing the source material that sparked today's dive. It was a really fascinating look into the creative potential baked into the game's rules.
It definitely shows just how much depth there is to explore there.
Totally. And we've only just scratched the surface of these 5 builds, really, let alone the countless other multi-class combinations people have cooked up. Thinking about the ones we discussed, or maybe a different one you've played or seen, what are your favorite multi-class combos? Whether it's because they're super effective or just, for the sheer fun of the concept, we genuinely love you to share them with us.